The thing is, whether I go to a meeting here in Georgia, in Africa, in New Orleans, in Spain, in the principles are still the same. The program doesn't change. Everything is still the same. And what I'm coming to understand in the recovery community as a whole, outside of that, is that the same principles still apply. The self-awareness. You have to become honest. You have to have some hope. You have to have some courage. You have to have some integrity. You have to have some perseverance. You have to have some humility. Like, these are all things, no, regardless of what you decide to do, what recovery journey you decide, what recovery pathway you decide to choose. These are principles that you're going to need in your journey to persevere.
I love that you did mention the importance of getting professional services, getting therapy, because it's one thing to have the peer experiences, to be in community. That's necessary. Like, that's one part of it. But the other part is indeed the therapy. Like, someone who is trained to do this and has years of experience is slightly different to what you were saying before. Like, you have to be a clinician. You know what I mean? Like, there is a difference. There's a difference in the levels. So thank you for sharing that. Um, and just as a parallel example, you're actually the second person to share a story like that. This goes out to my girl. Shout out to Jessica Holly. She experienced something similar. We attended the Moving Past Potential workshop. You see the notebook back there, and she shared a story there where she has that innate sense of protectiveness for anybody that she's connected to, for essentially a similar reason. Like, she values people and wants to make sure they feel protected, because she didn't always feel that way. You know what I mean? So I love that. At least now I know I got two sisters that can protect me if something goes wrong. um, but yeah, shout out to you, and thank you so much for sharing those stories. So, given Atlanta is your training ground, your stomping grounds, like that's where you do the majority of your work. Talk about what have you seen as the most prevalent um, area of recovery, if you will, or kind of addiction, if that makes sense. Like, what is the most common form of recovery that you deal with?
To believe it or not, in regards to substance use recovery, crack is really still a thing. The crack
Mm,
epidemic is still a thing. Granted, the opioid epidemic is soaring. There's a lot of people, um, the fentanyl that's really been a big thing, and we've lost quite a few people. I mean, even my friend that passed away on my recovery date, that was the drug that took her out. The fentanyl has
wow.
been um, very trending in the substance use community, and um, sadly, they're putting it on everything now. They're putting it on
Mm,
everything. So it was just
mm-hmm.
something that you could find in pills, but now they're putting it on marijuana, they're putting it on crack, they're putting it in heroin, they're putting it in everything. So there are a lot of people that are also coming in for fentanyl overdoses because now they've they I guess they got a taste of it, so now they just want
Mm.
fentanyl.
Oh.
And yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Um, but one thing I can say in the mental health space is
Mm-hmm.
it could because the beautiful thing about substance use and mental health, they're kind of they're one thing. Because it's been identified as a chemical imbalance. Once the
Mm-hmm.
dopamine is released for a specific substance, you're kind of pretty much off to the races, and
Yep.
psychologically something happened. So
Yep.
they've classified substance use as a mental health addiction, and that's just for the individuals that may be on here specifically for mental health that don't understand that substance use is a mental health disorder. But in the mental health community, I see a lot of schizophrenia, a lot of bipolar disorder, The very common one, though, out of all of them, is substance use. Um,
Okay.
and I actually work at a mental health facility, but a lot of individuals have co-occurrent disorders. So they're similar to myself with dual diagnoses. So it's really interesting to see individuals that have had all of these experiences and they're dealing with all these different things. It's like you can't really just address one without the other, because individuals
Right.
that don't address their mental health diagnoses, they're typically using drugs, and then if they're using drugs, they're not addressing their mental health. So it's kind of like that's really the main thing I see in the community, is that this thing where it's like you can't, if you don't take care of one, you won't have the other.
Very true. And I can see why that I can see why those two commingle. I can see that because going back to what we said earlier about the importance of regulating the nervous system, most drug use is self-medication or like
Mhm.
self-soothing. And that's the importance of learning those tools to breathe or to be able to have someone to talk to, even if it's somebody to vent to. Even if you're not necessarily looking for a solution right in the moment, you just need to vent. You just need to like
Right.
projectile vomit on them real quick, emotionally vomit on them real quick. Sometimes even that, because that's one of the things that Tim shares as well on his podcast, like that he's learned through his therapy. He said words are what the body uses to heal. So
Mm,
there's power in getting stuff off your chest. Like that is a
absolutely.
thing. So yeah, so don't take that lightly if you're someone who
Because
is struggling. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, because when I first was introduced to the 12 step meetings, I'm like, what is this going to do? All we do is sit in here and talk about our problems. But but ultimately, it provided a space where I can talk about what I'm going through in regards to substance use, but also how to stay away from it. Because along with me
Mm,
as a new person, there are people that have been there for years. So they've been there, done the stuff that I'm talking about, and they have their lived experience to support me. And it's so beautiful that I get paid to do the same exact thing that I do every day. And the one thing that changed my life, like, I don't have like parents. I don't. I'm 35 years old. And what it did, it put me in a community of, elder people. I mean, there's some young people too, but specifically, like, there are some people that have more time in recovery than I've been born. So they have
mm.
so much experience. They have so much, so many things to help me out with. And I've been adopted by so many of them because, as
Yeah.
stated before, there are not many young people in recovery. So it's like I'm the baby. So it's a beautiful thing to go into a space where you can get, because you can't be on the block or be amongst your friends, your everyday friends, and say, man, I'm feeling inadequate today. My self esteem is kind of low today. I'm really struggling with X, Y, and Z. It's not. You're probably not going to get your typical response is probably not going to be anything other than you tripping.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
They're probably
mm-hmm.
going to minimize it. so,
Right.
so to be in a space with people that can identify with you is a game changer, because a lot of us, the thing is, something that I've learned is a lot of us think we're unique. Even me, I thought I was unique, but and that I'm the only person in the whole world that feels this way. No one can possibly understand. No one can help me. I was so self obsessed with so many negative things that I wouldn't allow people in to help me. So the main thing is developing that trust. You just not even trust. You just gotta become open. When people are in these spaces and they're being
Yeah.
vulnerable, it's not easy to be vulnerable. And I do understand that because a lot of us have been hurt. But that's why you find a mutual space. Like you don't want to just go to some random space
Yep.
and be talking about all your stuff. Like if you're dealing with grief, you need to find a grief counseling, a grief group. If you're dealing with addiction, you find an addiction group. If you're dealing with sex addiction, you find a sex addiction group. So that's the importance of a mutual group, because that they can provide you with lived experiences that are very parallel to what you're going through versus you um just talking to some random group of people that have no identification with what you got going on. So yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. Because the last thing we want, and this is actually, I love that you brought that part up because this lends itself to the fear of public speaking. Like most people fear public speaking more than they fear dying. And ultimately, to your earlier point about like early traumas, that literally comes from back when you were a kid and you were picked on to read a book. And like you're trying to read and the other kids are laughing at you if you stumble over a syllable or even half of a syllable, right? Nobody wants to relive that feeling. So it's important to be in a place with mutual that mutually addresses what you're dealing with because you want to feel safe. You don't want to relive that same childhood experience because then they'll just be staring at you like, what are you talking about? Or they'll be looking at you like, this is TMI. Like, I didn't come here to hear this kind of thing. So thank you so much for sharing that. Like researching those specific spaces, I think are crucial. And like one one other thing I wanted to share with our audience based on what you said there are two things that we need, y'all, before we can heal from any addiction, any trauma, or anything. We have to feel safe. So we have to be in a safe space. And back to my earlier point about that nervous system, we have to be calm. Nothing is going to happen unless and until those two things are true. You have to feel safe and your body has to be calm enough for you to open up. You've heard Unique mention that like 3 times now. So I wanted to come back around to that because I noticed you did touch on that several times. For what was that moment for you when you decided, okay, because when you first went to the 12 step, meeting, you were like, okay, what is this? It's just a bunch of people talking about their problems. But talk about what that moment was for you when you made the decision, you know what? Okay, like I'm gonna open up and trust this process. Like this is new to me. Like I don't know if these people gonna do something crazy to me if I start sharing. But you know what? Let me open up. Let me try this for myself. Kind of talk about that moment for you.
Well, I had actually been in and out of that recovery process before this surrender.
Mm,
I did it, but I didn't take advantage of the fellowship. I didn't take advantage of the literature that was provided to support me. I
mm,
didn't engage with people. I didn't do any service to others while in that organization. Um, so this time when I came back, I was very resentful. I was very angry that I had to come back. But at that
mm,
point, it was the only place for me to go. Like I remember the day before I got in recovery, I went there and raised my hand and said, "Look, I'm not trying to stop, but I know this is a place I can talk about how I feel."
mm.
And you got you some slick older people in there, and this lady across the room yelled out, "You can't straddle the fence." And when I left from there, I still went and did what I did. But the following day, it was an epiphany. It was like, man, like, because I had been on a 3-day run. It
Wow.
was just like I had been up for like 3 days, like just, and I was tired. And it's just like, where else do you go? Um,
Hmm.
and then I wouldn't open up enough. I wouldn't accept that I had an addiction to get like treatment, to go into treatment or detox or anything like that. And because I tried to, but they wouldn't accept me because I would say, "Oh no, I'm not an addict, or I don't have any issues with, no, I just need a place I
Mm,
can go and recuperate. I just need to get my mind together, But the breakthrough happened when my friend passed away. Bottom line,
okay.
it was like, okay, I'm not too young to die, and these people have lived very long and healthy lives. So it's like I can't beat them. I might as well join them. So I just started mimicking the things that I saw done around me, and I became a productive member of society. I've become a lady. I've become an educated woman. I've become all of those things that I envied when I entered into recovery. Um, but that's initially what made me decide, like, you know what, let me just be open. So because they're not telling me to cause any harm to myself. So let me just take the suggestions. Let me
Mm-hmm.
let me just be open, because the thing is, whether I go to a meeting here in Georgia, in Africa, in New Orleans, in Spain, in the principles are still the same. The program doesn't change. Everything is still the same. And what I'm coming to understand in the recovery community as a whole, outside of that, is the same principles still apply. The self-awareness. You have to become honest. You have to have some hope. You have to have some courage. You have to have some integrity. You have to have some perseverance. You have to have some humility. Like, these are all things, no, regardless of what you decide to do, what recovery journey you decide, what recovery pathway you decide to choose. These are principles that you're going to need in your journey to persevere. And so I think just being open to the idea, like, look, okay, they're not telling me to hurt myself. That's how simple I kept it. Look, they're not telling me to cause any harm to myself. They're not making me do anything illegal. So let me just be open. And I was forced to do a lot of things when I first came around, because they saw something in me that I didn't see. And I'm
Mm,
grateful that I didn't buck. I said, you know what? Like, he ain't asking me to cause no harm, so let me just show up. What's the worst that can happen? And now mm, it's been a beautiful process. I'm so grateful for my recovery process, because I didn't even speak this
that's
way when I
beautiful.
came around.
That part.
I'm looking at the camera now. I'm looking at the camera now, like, who is that?
Yes,
That's
and
what
we love
recovery
the
do,
person that's in the
baby.
camera. Yeah, we love the person that's in the camera now. Like, it's awesome to see how far you've come, considering what you were dealing with, especially when you have multiple diagnoses that you're dealing with. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. As we start to wrap up the conversation, I do want to make sure to touch on procrastination, because one of those hard truths I had to share with everybody is the fact that habitual procrastination is indeed an addiction. So the process to overcome it is very similar to the process that you lead your peers through. It's very similar. And you touched on many of the points. You got to be honest with yourself. It starts with that. You have to acknowledge what the issue is, the importance of community, being able to speak to other people that have dealt with habitual procrastination before and learn the tools that they've used to overcome it, or you know what I mean, since it is habitual, how they buck against it each time they encounter it, you know what I mean, to still remain productive. You mentioned the importance of integrity, like doing the things you say you're going to do, even if that means somebody else got to hold you accountable, be like, hey, I need your help with this because I'm not going to be able to pull this off on my own. So a lot of those processes, like you said, the principles are the same all the way across the board. So talk to us about like how you've dealt with procrastination in your life, because I know that was something that you were dealing with between the ADHD and sometimes with the anxiety. Like, talk about your journey with that.
It's like this is going to be a 2 hour episode.
We can split it up.
So, in regards to procrastination, the I did not realize that my mental health was a huge reason why I procrastinated so much. And I so what a typical day would look like, I would wake up. Well, first of all, I probably wouldn't go to bed until like 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning for some reason,
Mhm.
because my mind is racing, and I'm on social media or something pointless. And I would wake up and then I'll be like, okay, I got this to do, this to do, this to do. And I'll take this mental list of all the things that I have to do, and I will get paralysis analysis, which means I would sit there and think about all the things that I would do, and it'll overwhelm me and I won't do anything.
Mhm.
And in turn, that would trigger my depression because I didn't keep my promise to myself. I didn't do what I said I was going to do today. And something I heard earlier today was, when I neglect my responsibility, I cause self inflicted pain.
Oh,
And
that's good.
yeah, when I neglect my responsibilities, I create self-inflicted pain. And the thing is, it can be as simple. I was having this conversation in regards to weight gain. Like, if
Mhm.
I neglect going to the gym and eating properly, and I'm every now and again crying about how fat I've gotten or how overweight I am, that I'm causing my own turmoil because I'm neglecting the responsibility of doing the right things to get me to that place. So the times that I would wake up and not do what I'm supposed to do, those tasks eventually would pile up. And
Mhm.
I would be so overwhelmed, and also another thing that had to stop was me being it was people having access to me, because
Oh, that's good.
I would do what you need me to do with no problem, but I won't hold myself accountable when it came to the things that I needed to do for myself. And I remember E saying, like, where would you be if you did everything you said you wanted to do? Like, where would you be if you did everything? And I was just thinking, like, wow, like so many times I was like, okay, today is the day, and absolutely nothing happened, And so, in regards to procrastination, what has helped me a lot is to create that system that I was telling you about that my therapist gave me, and she didn't give me anything. It's just, along with the medication, I would wake up, do my skincare routine, get my clothes together, brush my teeth. Because sometimes it was hard for me to even get out of the bed. I
Mhm.
would have
Mhm.
loads of laundry. I'm somebody that has more clothes than probably Steve Harvey. So my laundry would pile up for 3 or 4 months. I'm
Wow.
neglecting my laundry because I got new clothes I put on every day. So, um, my laundry would be piled up. I wouldn't take care of my hygiene. I wouldn't take care of myself. And I'm not realizing this is a direct reflection of procrastination and not taking care of my mental health. So, once I started taking the medication, which is a stimulant, it was like, okay, now I'm charged up. Now I'm looking forward to what I had to do. So another thing I had to implement was my calendars, my reminders, my timers. Like, even along with this call, I set a 2:55 timer so I can be at my computer at 2:55, because I'll look up and it'll be 3:15. So
Mhm.
so I've been intentional about, setting timers, setting reminders. And even with me being in school, I write out my assignments. The biggest thing about procrastination is we all probably have multiple tasks that we have to do, but by me writing them on paper, I can prioritize.
Yep.
And that's when I can create my to don't list. Like, some things just
That.
don't get done.
Talk about
Yeah,
that. Talk about that.
My to-do list, like my to-do list is on fleek. You hear me? Like, because some things take priority because that's what typically happens. We have so many things and we put them everything at the same level when certain things just don't have to get done, and that's just like, if I could provide an example, I had a flat, my tire was going flat earlier. I needed an oil change and it was like already 1 o'clock. So I literally had 2 hours and I still needed to come home, shower, dress, go to my job, get my check, go to the bank, deposit the check, make it here, set up, do this, do that. So typically that would overwhelm me. That would drive me crazy. Like, oh my God, I got all of this stuff to do. But what I did was, okay, and I still made my omelet. That was at 1 o'clock.
That part,
So,
that part.
still made my omelet. So what I did was I said, okay, I got this to do. Okay, what I'll do is I can put on makeup when I come back, but I need
Hmm.
to shower. I need to
Hmm.
get dressed. I need to go get my money and I need to go to the bank. So I prioritized those things and I was like, okay, I can set up when I get back. Because if I try to set up, get made up, do all of this now, then it's going to throw me off. So that's a great example as to like
Hmm.
2 hours ago that of how I prioritize things, so that I'm not procrastinating, so that I'm not falling behind, so that I can still do things in a timely manner. So most importantly, I wish I could run down my list real quick of my 30 things to prevent you from being overwhelmed because those things are what help us prevent procrastination. A lot of those
Hmm.
tools that
A
I
lot of, yeah, y'all. Yeah. We'll make sure to offer you guys like access to the replay on the next workshop that I do, but Unique was one of the speakers for the Crushing Q2 workshop. She spoke on day one. Everybody loved those 30 steps
have.
to overcoming being overwhelmed because you're right. Like they were all practical. And what I love about them is that they're easy and free. You know what I mean? Like, like they're easy to do and they're free. There's no extra pressure on you to do these things. Some of the things are things that you would just stop doing. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Similar to what you're talking about with the to don't list. That's one of them, y'all. That's one of the ways to overcome being overwhelmed. That's simply shifting some things off your list that you know are not urgent. Remember what I told you guys about that matrix? If it falls under not urgent and not important, put it on the to don't list. Like it's not important. Like you don't need to do it. You
And
don't need
getting
to
the
do it.
proper rest if anything,
Yes.
I'll just say number one, like how I admitted that I used to be up all night on social media and doing this and doing that. I don't do that anymore. Like I know if I have something to do, I need to take my behind the bed. Bottom line. And as I said in the video, like I know you grown and you pay your phone bill, but you need to go to bed. Like we got stuff to do tomorrow.
That part. I know you pay a phone bill, but I need you to put that thing down. Okay? Like it is stripping you of your sleep. It is stripping
Yeah.
you of your sleep.
And
Yeah.
as you say, I was gonna say, and as you say, a moment of transparency, like um, as Mellissa was becoming the procrastination coach, me and her would be on the phone till 3, 4 o'clock. Or I didn't go to sleep till 4 o'clock, or I didn't go to sleep till
Mhm.
5 o'clock. But then we started implementing things to
A
like we
hard
had to,
stop.
yeah, a hard stop. That hard stop. My hard stop is 10 o'clock. I'm not reading nothing. I'm not writing nothing unless it's a journal. Oh, that is another tool for mental
Ding.
health. Your journal. Start until you. I mean, not until. Start writing those things. Start journaling on a day-to-day basis. And some people find it weird or uncomfortable, but I would suggest just start writing a gratitude list. What are 10 things you're grateful for today? And then you could talk about what you did today, and just start off simple, and as you continue, they'll grow. I promise you, because mine were 2 lines when I first started journaling in 2012. Now I have 25 journals around here. So yeah.
There you go. Absolutely. And I'm glad you added that. And I would challenge you guys with an extra layer. I follow Lewis Howes and his School of Greatness podcast. This was many years ago. But on one of his episodes, he said he keeps the gratitude journal, but the things he writes down that he's thankful for are things you can't pay for.
Mm-hmm.
So for those things that you're grateful for, make sure it's not stuff that has monetary, that stuff you can buy. Like write the stuff that money can't buy that you're grateful for. And I thought that was
Yeah,
awesome. Hmm.
that's good.
Yeah. So we don't get access to all 30 in the open air, y'all. But if you are curious, you can check out Unique on YouTube. She did preview some of those steps to overcoming being overwhelmed over there. So by all means, check out those videos. I want to say you got like halfway through it. I want to say
Yeah,
you,
I did. I
yeah.
did. And because of my mental health, I had to stop.
Homegirl was doing too much.
Doing too much, which is one of the rules. You doing too much. That's why you procrastinate and you doing too much. Some of that stuff ain't even necessary. So that was one of the things that wasn't necessary, to be recording videos, uploading videos, because at that time I just had too much going on.
Absolutely. But in the meantime, I'm gonna wrap up the conversation here, y'all, because people got lives and she do be working. So I want to make sure to release Unique to the rest of our afternoon. But tell our folks where they can reach you, where they can find out more about your services or interact with you on social media. Where can they find you?
So on all social media platforms is I am Unique Dixon. Yep. On Facebook, Unique Dixon. On TikTok, I am Unique Dixon. On Instagram, I am Unique Dixon. And that's pretty much all I have. Well, I have my YouTube channel is That's Unique, which is
Okay.
also under Unique Dixon as well.
Beautiful. Unique, thank you so much for your time. Definitely gonna have you back on here because we gotta finish the conversation. And just having you as a great resource, to help folks put language to the stuff that they're dealing with. And if y'all are open to it, if you want to ask Unique some questions, you know what I mean? If she's down for that, we would love to have episodes like that, like Q&A episodes like that. But thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you.
Of course, and they could drop the questions in the chat, and I could possibly cover them on the next episode.
Absolutely. I love that idea. You guys heard that. Comment below if you've got some questions on this episode, all right? But in the meantime, we'll see you on the next episode. Beat procrastination with an attitude. Go to gettingthewingear.com. We've got shirts that deliver that message of your strong focus and dedication to your hashtag luxury item, because your goal is super important. You are super important, and it's important that the world knows that you know that. Give them the message of focus, of self-work, of self-improvement, and empowerment. Go to gettingthewingear.com. Check out the shirts, sweats, mugs, bags if you need it, and give yourself that reminder, give the world that reminder that you are indeed a goal getter. You are indeed a winner.